In the 90s, this guy murdered over 100 people. Now, imagine a time in the olden days when people didn't carry phone in their pockets. You can't be tracked, right? A time when technology couldn't watch you everywhere. The golden age of fear, when danger felt real and privacy still existed. We like to think that if someone killed over 100 people, we'll know about it, right? We will see the headlines, we'll know the killer's face. But what if the reason he don't know the killer's face is because the killer was listening to the police radio even before they began hunting him? Today, we are diving into the darkest urban legend of the Pacific Northwest, the case of Silas Thomas. But the street of Echo Point didn't call him Silas, they call him the Bogeyman. Let's rewind to 1998 in Echo Point Street, Washington. It's a city that looks like it's permanently under grave fever. It rains 200 days a year, and it's the kind of place that people go to disappear. But between 1989 to 1999, people didn't just disappear, they were erased. Official records state that Silas Thomas was responsible for 104 disappearances. 104. Is it a serial killer? Is the reincarnation of death? But here is the hook. Here is the part that keeps criminologists awake at night. For 10 years, the Federal Bureau of Investigation had a task force dedicated solely to him. But for 10 years, they didn't just fail to catch him, they failed to prove he even existed. You see, Silas didn't operate like a typical monster. He didn't have a type, nor did he have a signature weapon. His weapon was information. After his capture, the police raided the safe house and abandoned telecommunications hub beneath the city streets. What they found wasn't trophies, it was tapes, thousands of them. You know, Silas wasn't just an ordinary guy. He was an electrical engineer by trade, a phantom who knew the city's grid better than the city planners. Here's the craziest part. Silas didn't stalk his victim by following them in a van. He stalked them by tapping into their phones, placing listening devices in their vents, and splicing into closed-cycle feeds of apartment complexes. With that, he knew when they slept, he knew when they fought with their spouses, and he knew when they were alone. But the most terrifying part wasn't how he got his victims, it was how he played with the feds. Now, imagine being the lead investigator. You spend months building a profile. Along the way, you discover the pattern, so you went out with your men to go hunt down the killer, convinced that tonight will be the night to catch him. You kick the door, guns cracked, but as you got inside, the room was empty. Now, what is most depressing is that there's still a hot cup of coffee on the table, a cigarette in the ashtray, and the sherry is still burning. It was as if it was there 30 seconds ago. This happened not once, not twice, but a dozen of times over a decade. It got to the point where the paranoia in the bureau was suffocating. Agents started turning on each other. How else could he know they were on his trail? How could he slip through a dragnet that tight unless someone on the inside was tipping him off? So, rumors started flying that Silas was a ghost employee, a black ops experiment gone wrong, or that the lead investigator is actually Silas himself. Of course, it sounds like a movie plot, but this was the reality of the investigation. The feds were chasing a shadow that seemed to know their playbook better than it did. His disposal method fed into this mystery. It made people evaporate. No crime scenes, no struggles. They just vanished. Now, here's the question. How do you catch a man who hears everything? Now, listen. Things changed in the late 1999 when the technology started to shift and the digital age was creeping in. Silas was a master of analog, of copper wires and radio frequencies, but he wasn't ready for encryption. It got sloppy as he tried to tap into a newly installed fiber optic line at a tech startup. Ironically, it was a company developing early cybersecurity measures. It triggered a silent alarm, not a physical one, but a digital packet loss that pinpointed a physical breach in the line. After that alert, the police didn't send a SWAT team. They didn't make use of the radio, they didn't make it obvious. The lead investigator, a man named Miller, who had been chasing Silas for 8 years, drove to the location in his personal car, off-duty and with a gun on the passenger seat. He found Silas in a utility manhole, headset on, surrounded by splicing tools. And so, that's how they caught Silas. He was taken to trial, but the trial was a circus, since the sheer number of evidence found in his lair was overwhelming. It turns out that Silas wasn't an insider. He didn't have a mole in the FBI. He had simply bugged the local FBI field office. Silas wasn't just your average killer. For 5 years, he was in the same room with the FBI, listening to them planning on how to capture him. Well, his run finally comes to an end. He was sentenced to death by electrocution. Although, Washington State still offered hanging or lethal injection, but maybe the judge wants a poetic end for an electrical engineer, so he signed off for the death by electrocution. Now, the date of his execution was set to July 2000, but this is where the story shifts from true crime to something else. Witnesses say Silas was calm, too calm for someone that's about to get killed. They strapped him in, the sponge was soaked, and the electrodes was attached. Before the final procedure, the warden asked him if he had any last word. Silas looked directly at the glass from Dr. Miller and said, "I am just a puppet. It's not yet over." They threw the switch. Usually, it is just a grim clinical process. But that night, the lights in the prison didn't just dim, they exploded. The electric surge that went through the chair was reportedly double the standard footage. The backup generators kicked in, but immediately failed. The entire prison went pitch black for 4 minutes, and in the darkness, in the execution chamber, witnesses reported hearing a sound, not a scream, but a hum, a low frequency hum. When the power finally came back on, Silas Thomas was dead. There was no ambiguity there. The state had done its job. But here is why it's been talked about 25 years later. In the weeks following his death, the residents of Echo Point reported strange occurrences. Weird phone calls from the unknown. So many strange occurrences. Even the detective who caught him, Detective Miller, retired 2 months later. He moved to a cabin in Montana, entirely off the grid. No phone, no electricity, no internet. Well, the FBI sealed the case files on the bogeyman. They claim it is to protect the dignity of the victim's family. But conspiracy theorists think it is because the files contains transcripts of tapes, recordings Elias Thomas made of the FBI, proof of incompetence so staggering they had to bury it forever. Or maybe, just maybe, they found something else in that underground bunker. But there's a rumor that Silas left one final tape, titled After. It wasn't a recording of the past, but a recording of things that hadn't happened yet. Now, this is the end of the story. Don't forget to like, follow this page, and comment your thoughts about what you think happened to Silas.